Okay, we're on. Thank you for being here, Angela. I'll give us a little quick introduction because today is May 9th, and that means we are 9 days into the mouth breathing awareness campaign. And what I'm trying to do through this whole awareness thing is help people see how common myofunctional symptoms are, how common mouth breathing is, tongue tie, sleep apnea, and if we can just focus on the mouth breathing part, people recognize that, they can identify it easily in themselves or their kids, and it's such like a canary in the coal mine symptom of so many other bigger things, right? So I've got you here today to share your story, and you're a hygienist and a myofunctional therapist. You are in Central Virginia, so let me just make sure I get your practice right. Central Virginia OMT, and you're in the Fredericksburg, Virginia area. So I would love for you to just tell us about what you're doing. How did you get into the field? And then I know you're going to share your own personal story and journey with myofunctional symptoms today. So we'll get into that too. But first, just introduce yourself and tell us all about your practice and stuff.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for having me.
Yeah.
I live in Fredericksburg, Virginia, like Sarah said, and right in between our nation's capital and Richmond. And I have always been interested in orofacial myofunctional therapy and the disorders.
Mm-hmm.
And starting about maybe over 11 years ago, I attended a continuing education course, and it just touched on, it was like a half and half course,
Really? That's a long
touched
time
on
ago.
it, yes. And
Yeah. Whoa, that's good.
yeah, with a mixture of military moves and deployments and having babies, I could never dive into it. And I finally found a point in my life now that I want to focus more on this, because I have found so many things about myself and realized throughout the years that, wow, I have this disorder. Oh my goodness, this led into this. I want to learn more. I need to know more. I want to fix. I want to help. I want to sleep. I want to breathe better. I
Is
want.
that is
Mm,
that kind of what got you, like, it was your own symptoms that made you say like I need to pursue this career?
yes.
Interesting, cool. So what was the first symptom that you really started to notice? Like what was the one that you're like, I can't deal with this anymore, I need to figure it out?
Wow, great question. I don't know if I can pinpoint that exactly, but I
Okay.
will never forget in the class, she had this ruler, this little white ruler, and she gave it to everyone in the class on our little setup. And she says, okay, open as big as you can and put this in there and have your neighbor read a number. And she was going through this with us. And I thought, oh, wow. And my mouth, it opens really big. I have a big mouth. And then she says, okay, now put your tongue to the roof of your mouth and now measure that. And I'm like, oh, my tongue doesn't, how come hers opens up bigger than my mouth? Why doesn't my mouth do that?
So
So
who
I
was your
figured,
instructor back then? Who was that?
I wish I could remember. I even looked through all my
Oh
seat courses
no.
because I saved my paperwork and I couldn't find it so long
That's all
ago.
right. Well, she still influenced you, and now here you are today. So, um, yeah, I guess you can start. I know you started to tell me like back you these things showed up back when you were a kid. So, do you want to like take us all the way back to childhood and kind of go into like what started and where you are now?
Yes, thank you. I started off as a thumb sucker. I was always a thumb sucker as long as I can remember. I suppose I may have stopped possibly when I was 10, 11, 12. I'm not really sure, but my mother, she's a nurse, and she listened to our dentist, and the dentist suggested, apparently I suck my thumb all the time. And she says, we got to do something about this. With the nail polish stuff didn't work for me. I just sucked right through that. And a guard didn't work and such. So they put the fixed appliances in my mouth with the spikes coming down, the thumb guard, the
Yeah.
crib. And then we moved to I ripped that out. And then we went to the expander, thinking that I could use with the thumb sucking, my palate, formed around my thumb because my thumb was always in my mouth.
Yeah, and we
So
should actually, really quick for anyone listening, you're the first person I've interviewed who's actually talked about thumb sucking habits. So maybe you could give us some insight on why thumb sucking matters for like the tongue and all this stuff. Just a little
Yeah,
background for people.
I think the only thing that everything, is there's a pros and cons. There are pros and cons. And I think the only pro out of it was that I am a nose breather, which is great.
That's true.
The bad part is with my thumb in my mouth all the time, I ended up having a very narrow palate, and my tongue never set up on the roof of my mouth, which is, as and how a lot of people know, that your tongue should be resting on the roof of your mouth at all times, and your mouth should be closed. My mouth was never closed, and my muscles never truly formed around my mouth because they were just closed around my thumb, and my tongue rested on the bottom of my mouth, which isn't good. And with that, I realized over time that while I breathed through my nose, great, my mouth was still open. I had a low resting tongue posture. And I realize now that with all of my measurements and therapy that I'm actually going through myself, I have a tongue tie, a slight tongue tie.
It's so crazy. People don't realize, like, we think if we can just get kids to stop sucking their thumb, then the problem goes away and they can just get braces to straighten out their teeth. But people don't realize that the muscles and the habits change just as much. And so you can stop the thumb sucking and you can get braces, but those habits and postures and breathing patterns, those don't change unless you like work on those specifically. So
that's right. I'm lucky that I did not get an open bite with
that's so lucky.
Yes. And with the what a lot of people know as a tongue thrust, the reverse swallowing, I never had that either. However, with my what is classified now as a class 2 tongue tie, I still have swallowing problems because my tongue doesn't always go into the position where it should naturally go when I swallow.
Yeah. So going back to your story that I interrupted, so you got the tongue crib, you took it out, the spikes or whatever, you got an expander, and then what?
Let's see. That is almost a blur in my life. So from there, I remember cranking that Hawley retainer, or the palatal expander that was fixed in my mouth, and then I just didn't like it in there because it got in my way of sucking my thumb. So I ripped that out too, because no super glue is going to hold that in my mouth, so rip that out. And then we ended up doing the removable Hawley, which had the expander on there, and that actually worked better for me. And I think over time, I threw it away, wrapped it up in a McDonald's bag in the back of the car, and we threw it away in the trash at the gas station. And my parents said, "I'm not buying you another one."
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So I think I outgrew, that was just with those appliances, it slowed down my thumb sucking. And then I think around possibly the age of 11 is when I stopped sucking my thumb. But then at the age of 19, I spoke to one of my girlfriends where I worked, and she worked at this place part-time. And I always had a dental question for her. Never in a million years did I picture myself in the dental field. And she said, "God, you just have so many questions. Why don't you just come work at my office?" So I ended up as an orthodontic assistant, and then was evaluated and got braces for the first time at the age of 19.
Whoa.
And have been wearing those.
Your thumb sucking didn't actually mess up your teeth more at that point.
I know. I know. I kind of I don't know what happened. I may be lucky. I don't know, but got braces. And then since then, for probably the last 25 years, I have been wearing, similar to the Invisalign clear plastic slip over retainer, something like that. It's an Essex type retainer. And I have been using that for the last 25 years. And then when I started really diving into myofunctional therapy and learning more about it, I decided to take the upper Essex, the upper retainer, out and no longer sleep with it. And I have noticed every single morning that my tongue, when I wake up, my tongue is stuck to the roof of my mouth.
Did you have your tongue tie released, or
No. I think that with therapy that I've been doing, I have been practicing, of course, and I've been going through my exercises, but I think the fact that there has been nothing, no artificial, placement of anything in my mouth, and with my therapy, my tongue has been
Good.
there's nothing obstructing my tongue on my palate.
That's
So
great.
I don't know if over the course of the years, with something on the roof of my mouth for so long, that my tongue could never get a suction and my tongue could never
Mm.
knew to go up there. It always stayed away, which is why I think I also have that low resting posture. But I've also noticed
Mhm.
that, we are self-diagnosing while going through the therapy.
Totally.
I have a forward resting posture. So my head rests forward often.
Mm.
So I
So
have,
the like head forward head posture. So kind of like forward like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
My head
Which
comes,
can come from being a hygienist, right? It can be, but if you've had it your whole life, I mean, we do know that there's some crossover with that posture and airway issues or breathing issues, right?
yes,
Do you think you had
yes.
that?
Yeah, so about 7 years ago, having children, I have 3 boys. I am a very light sleeper because somebody's coming into my room, somebody's yelling and screaming or nightmare or something,
Yeah.
that I'm always on edge. Well, my husband said, you're not waking up refreshed. You should go get a sleep apnea test. I'm like, okay. So I go and I have a very light sleep apnea. And
Okay.
I was diagnosed, but I don't wear my CPAP because I feel so claustrophobic with the attachments and tightness on my head. And what if the kids need me? I'm tangled up in these cords and I
Yeah.
never wore them. But with the therapy that I have been performing and my exercises that I have been working on, I am
Hmm.
sleeping so much better. I
Good.
wake up
Yeah.
refreshed. So I think there is definitely a correlation between the therapy and
Getting your tongue on your palate at night, probably. I know that's something that I always talk about a ton in my MyoMentor program, but also with my patients is it's not just daytime tongue posture. You have to be able to get that palatal seal with your tongue at night. So maybe that's been a big helpful key point for you.
I think so. I really do.
Cool.
And I just tell my husband every single day, I'm like, he says, how'd you sleep tonight? Which is pretty much the first sentence that we ask each other every single
In the
morning.
morning, I know.
And I wake up and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm actually standing up straight. I don't feel heavy on the eyes or on my face. And I don't
Yeah,
feel lethargic or just heavy. I just don't
yeah,
feel heavy.
good. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your sleep apnea? Because Melissa Mugno, she touched on this a little bit. She was diagnosed, or I don't actually think she's diagnosed. I think she kind of has figured out that she has something more along the lines of the upper airway resistance, which is not, it's not full on obstructive sleep apnea, but you're in like this fight or flight mode while you're trying to sleep. You have like really light sleep. Did your doctors talk about having you classified more as that, or did they actually say that you have obstructive sleep apnea?
I recall them saying central. So it's
Central.
non-obstructive. My husband says I don't snore.
Mhm.
From time to time when my allergies bother me, I
Mhm.
might purr.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. But with the children, when they do purr and they do snore, we need to talk.
Yeah. So I suspect that, depending on when you had the sleep study and the lab, I do suspect you actually fall more into that UARS category based on what you're saying, with snoring, if it gets worse with allergies. So did they tell you what your like sleep number was, like your AHI or
Yeah,
RDI?
so they did. And I remember talking about it with the doctor in his office. And knowing that we were going to have this interview today, I searched all of my documents and I
You
can't
looked it
find
up?
them.
Oh, cool.
I
Okay.
did. And I don't recall any of the AHI numbers. I don't, or,
They
and I
couldn't,
don't,
they didn't have it anywhere?
no. So the doctor no longer is practicing. So
Okay.
it's yeah, I
Lost in
think
time.
I know. So it has to be somewhere in my documents, in my, many cabinets that I have
Yeah.
around my house, but uh, I need to find them so I can figure
Well,
this
I
out.
mean, it was 7 years ago, you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it might be worse if you have the ability to, through like any dental offices you work with, doing one of those take-home studies, like a watch pat. That
Great
might just
idea.
be enough to kind of give you an idea. But I mean, you got to go off of how you're feeling, right? So if you're feeling better, if you're sleeping better, then that's awesome. It still might be good to see like what's actually going on. Obviously, unfortunately, as we age, things potentially get worse. Unfortunately, right?
Right.
So, 7 years ago, it might have been worse. It might be, who knows? I would say it'd be worth looking into. So, once
I
all the COVID
agree.
stuff's over.
Yes, and now we just need to work on. There's only in my area. I am the as of now, and that all of the searching that I have done, I have found one other OMT, and she is a speech language pathologist here, and I know
Okay.
that she runs her own practice, and she's very busy. I have reached out to her, and hopefully we'll be able to meet up soon.
All right. So we just had a little technical issue, which is fine. It happens. But you were just telling me about how you were going to meet up with the other local myofunctional therapist who's a speech pathologist.
Right. I'm hoping to, with, this whole COVID stay at home issue going on, it's difficult to meet up. And I know that she's
Yeah.
busy seeing patients and such online. And so hopefully we'll be able to meet up once this clears out,
Yeah.
and just be able to touch base and see what I can do as a hygienist to help her. And
Yeah. Maybe you guys can work together.
that's right. Something that, I
Cool.
can even refer patients who I end up running into or who come to me and I see during an evaluation that, maybe a speech language pathologist could also be beneficial in their
Yeah.
treatment and
No,
growth.
I'm all about collaboration and working together and building up a team. So I think it's awesome that you've reached out and that she's, receptive and wants to meet up. So that's great. Are you seeing people online, like doing telehealth?
Yes, I am. And
Awesome. Nice.
it's working out. It really is. I love it. I think that you and your mentorship has just been really the leading ground for a lot of hygienists and dentists, dental hygienists, speech language pathologists, and those who can help and want to help. This really opens a big door for a lot of opportunity for therapy, especially
Yeah.
in other locations around the world. Because I know
Yeah.
you
Gosh,
see,
I know.
yeah,
I
it's
know. I think now the telehealth thing, it's like such a big deal and people are wanting to know more about it and do it. And now people are supporters of it. But for a long time, it was not something that people thought was always, it wasn't the most popular thing. Patients really liked it, but I think it was the providers that were skeptical of me doing the therapy for a number of years. I would say in the most recent years, people have really warmed up to the idea, but it wasn't until the COVID thing hit where all of a sudden I was getting tons of emails like, help me figure out how to do online therapy. How do I do this? And so I'm like, all right, things change. That's good. So
yeah,
anyway,
everything
I'm glad
happens
you're doing
for a
it.
reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is right.
Yeah. So I know we talked about you. Do you want to go into your kids? Do you want to talk about anything else with your practice? I'm happy to take it whatever direction you want.
Thank you. I have three boys. One is in Invisalign right now, and he was my thumb sucker. And for the longest time, I knew for a fact that he was going to be my braces kid. Actually, I kind of, being a hygienist, I think
Yeah.
even when the kids didn't even have their teeth and they were babies, I'm like, yep, you're going into braces because I already know the benefits of it, and etc.
Yeah. Did you see him mouth breathing or did you like what were those early signs that you noticed?
I think it was just my stubborn history of working in ortho and just being a perfectionist and very type A. And I just knew that no matter what, you're going to have straight teeth, clear, open palate, not a clear palate, but an open, nice,
Yeah.
wide palate so that we can make sure that we have all of the, I'm going to make sure that you do. And I
Do
only had.
any of your sons like have tongue ties or mouth breathing or any of these myofunctional issues?
Yes, my
Yeah.
youngest, he is 10 years old. He just turned 10, and he has a very narrow palate, and he was a double digit finger sucker. And
That runs in your family strong.
I know, this is how we roll. And these are the two kids who did take a pacifier, but I got rid of it at the age of 2. And the only time that they were allowed to use the pacifier was only in the crib and only when they were sleeping. I would not allow them to, I mean, right when they got out of the crib, bam, pacifier, get thrown back into the crib. It was just, to soothe them at nighttime so that I could sleep, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was helpful to them. It was helpful to me. And but my 10-year-old now, he has a very narrow palate and he is doing therapy with me.
Yay.
So
Okay. So he's
yeah,
he's one of your first patients then. That's good.
yes, that's right. So I consider myself number 1 patient. He's number 2. And then I have others who we are meeting online. It's
Yeah.
great.
That's great.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think you've given us some really good information. I think you're going to help a lot of other parents out there. I love how you brought in the thumb sucking. Like I said, no one else has really touched on habits and putting things in the mouth and how that has an impact on not just like the hard structures like the teeth and the jaws, but also the soft tissues and the breathing. So the lips, the tongue, cheeks, everything like that, the swallowing, which is really good. I'm happy you brought that in. Do you want to give a shout out to anyone that you work with, any of the dentists, any of the people in your area, anyone that you think is like, hopefully they listen to this and they get a chance to work with you maybe?
Oh, I would love to. I haven't started working with anyone yet, unfortunately, because it's so new and it's such a progressive idea in this location. So I am introducing it to several dentists and no shout outs yet because I really want it to work out and I don't want to jinx anything. But I'm slowly working and introducing, look during a quick exam, whenever dentists go and sit down in the chair and they perform an exam on their patients after the hygienist looks at them. Of course, we, the hygienists, we always write down notes so that they can see the notes, or we, discuss things during the exam. And I think an open airway, looking at the how if we can see the throat when we say open and say ah, and we pull the tongue out of the mouth and we do an oral cancer screening and such. I think looking at how open the throat, the mouth is, that we can see into past the uvula. And if we can't see, we know that there's obstruction, or we know that there's.
You're talking about the Mallampati score, which is such an easy thing. Like if we could all look at the soft palate and the tonsils and look into the airway, if we could all just do that simple screening in dentistry, we could catch a lot of people who potentially have more going on. And mouth breathing is the same. If we could just screen everyone for mouth breathing, even if it's only at night, right? Only at night, and even subtle during the day. If you could catch that, you could catch so many other things, right?
That's right. It's so important. It's just so important. And even the smallest catch, and really it can just start in the dental chair. I mean, we are the first line of seeing what's in the mouth.
I know, exactly.
It really is.
I mean, it's been great having you share your story. Thank you so much. So I'm hoping everyone will find you in your area. So Central Virginia, OMT, Angela Richwine, this is who you need to get in touch with. And that's it. I mean, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll just talk soon.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for being my MyoMentor. And I really am enjoying being in your class. And I think it's so important to get these exercises out and the therapy out to a lot of people. And thank you so much for being my mentor.
Oh, you're welcome. That's so sweet. Yeah, thank you. And we'll be talking. We'll be in touch, because since I'm your mentor, I'm not going anywhere. So I can't wait to see where your journey takes you, and how I'm hoping you can start to be, kind of the pioneer in your area and building this up in your community and helping your patients and connecting with more doctors and dentists out there who are hopefully going to start to be looking at this stuff soon too. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll talk later.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye-bye.
Bye.